Today at Green Zone Grow Shops, we're going to talk about pressing rosin using the Sasquatch Rosin Press. The first thing we want to do is we want to prepare our screens. I like to do is use just a business card and just slide it into this 35 micron filter screen. This allows me to put the plant material right in. As you can see, I like to do this. I've prepared my material in advance. I've just ran it through a little grinder and it's all prepared. I've got all the heavy sticks out. You don't want the sticks to push through the bag. And we're basically going to put that in. As you can see, if you see a stick, just take that big stick right out, eliminate that. And in here I can just pour in the plant material and get it right into the bag. This is a little bit sticky because it's fresh material. It's just finished drying and curing. This is all the lower parts of my plant. There are some buds in there. But stuff that I would call mids and thirds and some of the trim material. So we're going to get that right into the bag. And what we want to do is we want to weigh out 7 grams. In this particular case, this is a 7-gram capable bag. And one of the things you want to do is make sure you push the material right into the corners. So one of the techniques is you can take the bag and just shake it. But if you're working with, like in this case here, we have more bud material. We want to make sure you get it right into the corners here so that you don't have any empty gaps so that the rosin doesn't collect in that gap. So make sure you push your plant material right to the very corners. That's probably one of the most key points here. This is a technique for shaking it. You can take a pen and you can get right in there and you can push it right into the corners. And that way you have a nice tight fit. As you can see in this bag here, what I did, I like to reverse the bag so that the seam is on the outside, but it's not critical. I just like to do that to make sure all my rosin is squeezing out. Again, that's preference. So once you've filled up the bag, the next thing we need to do is, again, I like to weigh it. So here at the shop, if you're testing out our press, we have a scale ready to go, so you just have to zero that out. The bags weigh 1/2 gram. You can either do it with the bag on there and zero it out, but I like to just weigh the bag first, find out. We put the bag on, we have 7.5 grams ready to go. So let's move right on over to the press. So now what I do is I take this and I fold it right on over. And I've kind of pre-squashed this bag out so it's nice and square, as you can see here. Again, I'm going to make sure that very corner is pressed in. Let's just make sure we're all the way in there, and it appears that way. You can kind of squeeze it down a little bit. Fold this baby over, get your parchment paper ready. So I have my parchment paper, cut to size, I fold it over and I insert the bag. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go right over to the press, so stay with me for a sec as we come right on over here. And the press is usually always on and heated, but it only takes a couple of minutes to actually heat up. So here we're going to go. We're going to get this right into the plate. So we want to make sure that on the ram, which is right here, the pump, you can see over here there's a little valve right there. You just want to make sure that that is closed, so that's tight. So now when you pump, the piston is going to push down. We're going to apply some pressure. So let's get our camera set up so we can watch this process. Okay. So now we have a top and lower plate. They're both at 200 degrees and we're going to apply some pressure. So the first thing we want to do is let's take our parchment paper and just slide it in there. And I like to stick it off the back end about 1 inch to 2 inches because we're going to have rosin that's going to squeeze out in multiple directions. Fold the excess just underneath, just like so. And I like to have it so that the fold is underneath, and I'm going to slide right in, just like so. And I'm going to go in just a little bit past the plate. You can take one of the little magnets here and you can just put it on the metal piece to hold that out. So I want to make sure I'm back probably about 1/4 inch, maybe just a little bit more, so I'm just beyond the plates. And I'm going to make sure that the valve is closed, and I'm just going to slowly bring down a little bit of pressure. And I'm going to do what's called a preheat. So I'm just gently kind of squashing that down. And now I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. I'm going to let it sit for about 30 seconds. Up to about a minute, depending on the material. And I'm going to let that material warm up. It's going to start to come up to temperature. And then sometimes if it's really high quality, has a lot of resin on it, you'll start to hear a little bit of a cracking sound, and you'll note that's just the material is starting to heat up and starting to sizzle just a little bit. So we're going to let that go for probably another 20 seconds and let that material get nice and warm, and then I'll gently apply pressure on the pump itself, which is just right here off to the left side, as you can see. I'll come from this angle here, and here we go. So you can see this is the pump right here. I'm just going to bring and apply a little bit of pressure, just nice and gently. I'll put 2 pumps on it right now. Now if you want to get real technical, then you can get into doing it by timing, and you'd probably squash her for 1.5 to 2 minutes at the most. But this case here, this is just so you can learn how to use the machine. It's very simple to use. So now we've got enough heat on it, so I'm going to slowly apply pressure. And we're going to let that, I'm going to put another 2 pumps on it and just let it sit. Now one of the things you'll notice, and we'll zoom in a little bit here. Let's get right in here on this parchment paper. You'll start to notice as the rosin comes out, you see how it's starting to liquefy? And now you can see that little glistening right along the edge inside this. So you know the resin is starting to heat up, it's separating from the plant material, and it's starting to come outward. You'll see in just a moment as we start to apply just a little bit more pressure. Again, just add some pressure on the pump. Give it another pump, and we're going to let that continue to heat up. And there we go. You can start to see it glistening a little bit on the edge. It'll bubble. Again, based on the quality of the starting material, you'll know if it's really high resinous material, it'll really start to flow out and ooze. And we can start to add some more pressure on this. Okay, you can see it's starting to come. And here we go. You can see that nice glistening at the edge, and you can see a little bit of bubbling activity. So what we're going to do is we're going to let that come out, and you can kind of tell after a while it just stops bubbling and starts coming out. So if you want to let it go a little further, you can. But at a certain point, it's just not going to produce anything more than what it's going to produce. Now I'm going to do a second press on this as well. So you can do a first press and a second press based on preference. You're going to take that puck and you're going to fold it over. And what I like to do is I like to have another piece of rosin, parchment paper ready to go, because I want to be able to bend that puck, as they call it. I'm going to bend the puck over once or twice, and I'm going to reinsert it into the new fresh piece while it's still nice and warm, and then I'm going to press it for a second time. So I'm going to back out the video here just a little bit, the picture, so you can see we're about to release the pressure from the pump. So on the pump, that little dial, that little valve, we're going to back it off, and you'll notice that the piston will open up and allow this to come out. So I'm going to take the little piece off here, and then we're going to slide the material out, and you can see we've got some beautiful rosin on there. It's nice and clean and beautiful, and we're just going to let that cool off. You can just put that back together, keep it on a cool surface. I'm going to take this puck while it's still nice and warm, and I'm going to fold it over. In this case, I'll fold it twice because this material is very soft and pliable. So now we have another puck to put in. Insert your next piece that you got ready while it's still nice and warm, and we're going to insert this just past. Again, same thing, go back about a half an inch or so, tighten up the valve, bring the pump it a few times to bring this down. I like to put a little magnet here so I can see what's going on. I'm going to apply some pressure to this pretty quickly and let that heat up so I can get the remaining amount of rosin out of the material. Now after that, then we're going to let this cool off for a little bit on the first press, and then we'll extract it using a dab tool, and there's another video you can watch for the collection process. So hopefully this helps you on learning how to use this machine. Thanks for joining us today, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on those notification bells so when we put up some more videos, you'll get a notice. Peace, everyone.